And good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Happy Thursday morning to you. Appreciate you being with me. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and this is what I call my morning musings. We are studying the epistles to the Thessalonians written by Paul the Apostle. And we are focusing, or we will focus eventually on 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, since it is a key, foundational, critical text for all futurist eschatologies. But what we're doing currently is examining the context, what Paul had to say in the other passages in Thessalonians, both before 1 Thessalonians 4 and in his second epistle. In our last epistle, in our last installment, we saw where 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, 15, 17, which is a text that virtually everyone acknowledges, anticipated the AD 70 judgment of Jerusalem for persecuting the saints, is paralleled directly with 2 Thessalonians chapter 1. Okay, well, since 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 equals AD 70, and 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 is parallel to 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, that means that 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 equaled AD 70. Well, the real crux here, though, is what about 1 Thessalonians chapter 4? I want you to notice very quickly some direct parallels between 1 Thessalonians 4 and 2 Thessalonians chapter 1. Number one, we obviously have in both texts the coming of the Lord. Point number two, we have the coming of the Lord with the angels. Now, somebody might say, well, 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 doesn't mention the coming with the angels. Well, it's the shout of the archangel, and I don't know of anybody that would even try to suggest that the archangel is the only angel coming with Jesus. Really? And third, it is the time of the judgment of the dead and the living. And fourth, and this is really part of the critical element of it, both 1 Thessalonians 4 and 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 are written in and concerned with the death of the martyrs and the martyrdom of the Thessalonians. And Paul is promising in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 the reward of the martyred Thessalonians. They will not lose their reward even though they died before the parousia. Whereas in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, we have the vindication of the living martyrs, but that would include the vindication of the dead Thessalonian martyrs as well. There's no delineation. Now, unless a person can show that there are two different sets of suffering, that Paul is concerned with two different sets of martyrs, and the fact that while in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 he's focused on the rewarding of the dead at the parousia, and in 2 Thessalonians 1 he's talking about the vindication and the relief of the living, and my question to that would be, that does not prove a disparity. You know, there are those who try to delineate between 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 and 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. But my question to that would be, upon what basis? Now, very often, and this is deeply disturbing to me, commentators will say, well, you know, over here in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, we've got Jesus coming in flaming fire. But in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, we don't have a word about coming with flaming fire. In 2 Thessalonians 1, we've got Christ taking vengeance. But in 1 Thessalonians 4, there's not a word about vengeance. Folks, this is an absolutely horrible hermeneutic. Are we actually going to say that a writer or a speaker, every time that he speaks of a given subject, that he has to mention every constituent element of that subject that he's mentioned in other contexts in order for us to know that he's talking about the same thing? Are we actually going to argue that if a writer in a given context lists 5 constituent elements in association with an event, but in another context he only mentions 3 of those same identical constituent elements, that he must be talking about different events? What kind of journalistic principle would that be? There is no validity to that kind of argumentation. So again, in both texts, we have the coming of the Lord. We have we have the coming with his angels. We have the time of judgment and reward. We have the motif of suffering lying directly in both contexts. And by the way, we have the same identical time statement. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, to those concerning those of us who are alive. Were Paul and the Thessalonians alive? Yes, they were. Those of us who are alive and who remain until the parousia, 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, it is a righteous thing with God to repay with tribulation those who are troubling you and to give to you who are being troubled relief at the coming of the Lord. 5 perfect parallels. So if we are going to admit, by the way, as Gary DeMar and other noted postmillennialists do, 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 equals AD 70, these perfect parallels demand that it's the same as 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. And that means that 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 was fulfilled in AD 70. Hey, thanks so much for joining me for this morning's morning music. Don't forget the really, really special offer I'm making. Go to my website, eschatology.org and bibleprophecy.com. Order these 2 books. We Shall Meet Him in the Air, The Wedding of the King of Kings, and In Flaming Fire. Now, we don't have it set up on the website to automatically deduct the prices, but if you order the 2 books, okay, and you mention that you saw the offer on YouTube and Facebook, I will refund the price of In Flaming Fire, and I will refund your shipping. That will save you $10. Wow. Fantastic offer. Take advantage of it today. Thanks so much for joining me for this morning's morning musings. Lord willing, we'll see you on Monday. You have a fantastic weekend.